here. Today I wanted to just talk about a particular game that that I recently got. I've owned this game before. I've had play it digitally. There's the PS4 version of it, it's like the PC version. It's been updated, to turn off random battles and stuff. That's normal in older RPGs. And that would be Final Fantasy IX for the PlayStation. I've seen a lot of other people talk about other Final Fantasy games, so I just thought I'd talk about Final Fantasy IX. The unique thing about this game, of course, on the back it says, "The crystal comes back," which is a reference to the fact that they brought back everything that made, from the original Final Fantasy games. Takes us back to a world of fantasy and magic and stuff. Not not like, because Final Fantasy 7 and 8, Final Fantasy 8, some people like it, some people hate it. I've played Final Fantasy 8. It's kind of weird. Final Fantasy 7, of course, we're still talking about that game. There's actually been remakes of it where, yes, and I have played 5, 7 remake and all of that. Of course, the 7 and 8 were kind of in a sci-fi kind of fantasy, but Final Fantasy 9 returns to form. And it is, of course, one of the swan song of the PlayStation era, too. One of the last of the Final Fantasies to be on the PlayStation. I'm sure many people know it when Final Fantasy X came out. Probably people just kind of forgot about this, but it's like, a return to form to Final Fantasy. And in my opinion, it might be considered one of the best of them because, it's just kind of weird to think, because remember, the Dreamcast supposedly pooped out in 2001, so it's kind of crazy to think this game was made in 2000, one of the last hurrahs of the PlayStation. Of course, we've got a 4-disc affair. I might say spoilers or whatever, but I'm sure most of you played this game before. It starts out as trying to capture the princess and all this stuff. It turns into this big elaborate thing to save the world, which is kind of cool. Let's see here. Now I have the instruction booklet. I'm going to get it complete. There's the ugly greatest hits case, but I just thought it was good to have a physical copy of it, because you never know if you're still going to be, because PlayStation 3 store is shutting down. So I want to hurry up and get these before it shuts down. And once the store shuts down, if you've downloaded them, supposedly you have access to them, but that's not a guarantee either. Okay, let's see. We've got Zidane Tribal, kind of the thief dude. Albert Steiner, a knight with, particular things. We got Vivi, a black mage. Kind of a character who's trying to see if he's real or not, and comes to terms with that. A lot of people's opinions are that Vivi's the main character, and I guess maybe I agree with that, because his character arc does seem to be very important to the later parts of the game. We've got Garnett, which is, of course, the princess, and she thinks there's something weird with her mother, and she kind of wants to escape and see what's going on. Armorat Coral, he's like a thief. He's kind of an enemy at first, but then you can kind of make him be on your side. He's kind of a rather weird character. I think there's that Faye Tessant, and she's kind of like a dragoon knight. She's got the spear and the jumping ability, which we remember from a lot of other previous Final Fantasy games back on the NES and Super NES days. We've got Quina Q. She's an interesting species of the Quina, interesting species that just likes to eat everything. Leslie Vivi was raised by one, I guess. Yeah, she has unique abilities, so you can get her, I guess, kind of early. Yeah, there's a lot of things in this game where you can get things done early, or there's certain things that you need to do before certain things happen, and it's kind of hard to figure that out because the story is kind of interesting. We got Eco Girl, which is like she lives in a Eco. Yeah, she's a summoner from like a summoner villages, and I guess all the other summoners are gone. Yeah, her and Princess Garnett eventually have a link because Garnett can is technically has the ability to be a summoner. When you play the game, you look at her abilities she hasn't learned yet, and you see this whole list of things, and you're like, well, I'm going to try to get her leveled up so that she can finally use it. You know, there's a lot of it that are locked abilities you see on her thing and is like locked out. Of course, if you're playing the PS4 version or the PC version of Final Fantasy IX, you can max out all your characters' abilities and whatnot. Yeah, one unique thing that this game does is your weapons and armor, a lot of them have abilities tacked on. And you can earn those abilities. You know, learn like AP or something like that. I haven't really played this game for a while. But over time, you learn those abilities, and then you can go and equip other weapons. So you do kind of want to level up a little bit with each weapon and try to get these abilities. Well, then, of course, you have other abilities that you can equip, like bird killer, man killer, you know, certain things that gives you certain advantages against certain types of enemies, flying enemies. Yeah, I feel like the battle system and stuff is really done out great. We have limit breaks. Of course, they are called it's called trance in this game. And it's essentially a limit break. Your character gets all glowy and they can do special powerful attacks. Phoebe can do like double magic, and you know, a lot of the characters can do unique special attacks and whatnot. So it's an interesting game because you play it, you know, there is a part in the middle of the game where there's like the two parties of characters get split up and stuff, which is kind of cool because then you get to see the strengths and weaknesses of all these other characters. Now, in this instruction booklet here, if someone had numbered, I think we're numbering what characters they think are the best. Now, Vivi's number one. Faye's number 2. I'm not really sure. I think Faye would be one of the, well, she's one of the best. She's one of the main characters you want to fight the final boss on. I know that much. Let's see, who's number 3? Oh, number 3 is Sudine. And a lot of times it's like, I think a lot of people thought he was the main character. He has an interesting arc too, a little bit like Vivi's, but when you start out the game, you're playing as Vivi, just walking around the town. He's getting a ticket to go to a theater or something. Yeah, it's kind of a laid-back thing for him, but you know, I guess it could be argued that he is the main character. Let's see. An Eco is 4. You have a lot of magic users and a lot of summoners in this game. I mean, I'm not complaining about that, but it does seem, you know, a lot of Final Fantasy games, you of course would have characters with set roles, a black mage, this and that, but the summoning thing kind of gets to where the summonings are more like powerful spells. I mean, it's cool to see the cinemas form and stuff, you know, because Final Fantasy 7 really started that. You know, a lot of Final Fantasy games led up to this, but 9 kind of is like a return to form. This number 5 is Quina. I guess she's a white wind or some unique ability that's kind of a nice ability to have. Armret is number 6. He's kind of like a thief, so I think he can like throw stuff, like some ninja-like abilities. And Princess Garnett, she's basically a white mage. You're going to be using her to do white white mage abilities and stuff. Vivi's a black mage, of course. Steiner's a knight. Sadine's kind of a thief-like character. Yeah, it does seem weird that you have two major summoners and magic users. I don't. Yeah, basically, parties that I would fight the last boss on would be like Zadine because he's got the speed. He can like attack, steal. Like he can get some more chances to move than other ones. Usually, I would do like Zadine, Vivi, and Freya. I always thought it was weird. A lot of older RPGs, you can only control 3 characters. I felt like that was kind of a. I hope that RPGs would make it so that we could play as 4 characters. A lot of RPGs, have this problem where there are just so many characters, you're never going to be able to play as any of them, and it's hard to know which ones are the best characters to have. Because then sometimes you want to focus on leveling those up before you go to the final boss. And like many Final Fantasy games, you get to a point in the game where you have access to an airship and can just go everywhere and like stock up on stuff, find weapons, do extra side quests. There's like active time quests and many things. I mean, there's also things to really look for in these levels too. The biggest thing, of course, about if you're playing this on the original PlayStation version, you're gonna have to be prepared for a lot of the annoyances of old school RPGs. I guess this RPG. Well, I guess technically this RPG is 21 years old now. So yeah, most of them random battles. It can always be irritating because a lot of times the battle isn't even worth it anymore. Like you're such a high level, you go into battle, kill them, and get like 1 experience or no money. I mean, in the redone versions on the PS4 and on Game Pass, you can pretty much turn off random battles. You can max out everyone's stats and everything at the beginning of the game, and then just enjoy the story. Now the story. I think the story is really good. I'm not going to say it's the best story ever made. It might be kind of cliched, but it is kind of cool to do that. I'm sure a lot of people had already moved on from the PlayStation. We're already looking forward to the newest and greatest and best thing. Well, yeah, let's face it. I mean, the PS2 was kind of around the corner there. kind of around the corner there. And a lot of the age of these games. Yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy X was a very revolutionary game for Final Fantasy, but I think Final Fantasy IX was like a return to form. And I guess that's not a bad thing. It's the ultimate thing to realize about those, because 7 and 8 were as I've said before, were like a sci-fi kind of fantasy world. Fantasy IX kind of returns to what we really liked about it. With the whole thing that the crystal comes back. It's a pretty big RPG. I don't know if it's an RPG that you would want to particularly start with, but it's not as convoluted and complicated. It's not like Final Fantasy Tactics that is really complicated. I remember a memory about this particular game. I remember my stepbrother got this game when it was new, and we just played the heck out of it. I remember being so surprised. I'm like, wow, it's like a Final Fantasy game, like one more time. Because a lot of my go-to games and later on were these RPGs. Back when I, would have tons of time to play them and really just sit and spend time playing them. I mean, Fantasy IX it's one of those good ones, one of those good Final Fantasy games. There's a lot of fantasy games that are, they have weird problems, or they, particular things they want to do with the battle system or whatnot. Of course, the Final Fantasy is a series, that's, it's still going on. and it's still going on. And then, of course, I'll talk about another game. It's made by the same company, so it's maybe not completely off topic here, but many RPGs, these classic RPGs, a lot of them are maybe not as widely known. I think recently, people really want to play Xenogears, and that's kind of a unique game because remember, Square Enix was really big on Final Fantasy. They really loved Final Fantasy. And as what I've heard from history is that Final Fantasy actually saved Squaresoft back in the day because it was going to be their final game. Yeah, Final Fantasy. So it kind of saved the company. So it's not a surprise that they loved it, really loving it. But then someone was like, why don't we make a unique game, a game that's like not Final Fantasy, but just something completely different. And it created this whole giant universe. Xenogears is such a large story and encompassing game. There was like just no way they would ever be able to do it justice. PlayStation, it was made. It's just kind of the golden age of them. I feel like they've kind of faded away. They still make very great games. Don't really knock them for that, but there's been a lot of love for like I'm not supposed to say anything bad about any Final Fantasy game because then I'm such a weirdo, but Final Fantasy 9 does have its quirks. A lot of them are just old school RPG gripes. I remember people griping about random battles in RPGs for a while. A lot of games kind of did away with that. A lot of games did, like Granada series, where you see your enemy and you do have a chance to dodge them, or you can like surprise them real quick. It's not a sense of, gee, every 2 seconds I have to fight a random battle. Like a lot of times you'll be trying to do puzzles or trying to collect treasure chests. As I said before, the redone version of Final Fantasy 9 on the PS4 or on the Xbox One Game Pass is you can turn off random battles. So usually I can turn off random battles, go through the dungeon, collect, go all the chests, or I can it's kind of cool. I can go out in the field, just go out in an area, level up, and then usually my idea is I go out in the field, I fight tons of random battles, and I wait till I almost out of MP, all my characters are kind of half dead, and then kind of go back to the town to an inn, rest, and then an inn, rest, and then come back out and then go fight. But what the redone version is, I can go out there, and once I feel like I've fought enough random battles, I can turn off the random battles, and then I can get back to town, and I don't have to be scared of, oh no, I'm going to get killed and then have to redo everything. I can't remind you how many times it's this issue of old school RPGs and old school games is that a lot of times you had limited times in which you could save them. And this is before we had auto-saving and all of that. I can't tell you how many times, most RPGs, it's just a battle trying to even get to the boss. Like the dungeon, you're running out of MP, and it's a lot of RPGs started adding save points that would restore your health and everything. And then, of course, nowadays, a lot of RPGs now, they've really fixed the mechanics. Like, you can restart right from where you died in the battle. So you don't have to worry about, oh no, now I have to go through the whole game. There's a lot of games that I've played that had interesting old school things where they would not let you save, and I'd have to go through this whole cinema scene, even a boss, and a whole other thing. And then once I got control of him, I was out fighting, and all of a sudden, I don't know what happens. All of a sudden, he gets hit by some powerful attack. I'm dead, and I have to go through this whole thing again. And I'm like, this is a PS4 RPG. Why is some RPGs still have those weird mechanics and and whatnot. The character looks in Final Fantasy 9 are, well, or kind of like cartoony or something. They're not like the block character in Final Fantasy VII, and they're not really the realistic characters in Final Fantasy VIII. It's kind of hard to even say anything that's really bad about Final Fantasy IX. I guess it would ultimately be the random battles, especially if you're playing the original version. I would still suggest playing the original version. It's still kind of interesting to put a disc in a console and actually fire it up and play it. You know, I recently got an old school PlayStation, one of the really tiny PS1s, because there's a lot of great games on the PlayStation, and while there's a lot of great games on all kinds of old consoles, I guess I could have done a whole retrospective of the whole Final Fantasy series and just talk about my whole opinions on the whole thing. But I could tell you that Final Fantasy 7 and 9 are kind of like the old school games that, you know, I've beaten them a couple of times and I would say, oh, I'm never going to play this again. I need to put it on the shelf, not play it ever again. But then somehow I get called back into and I want to play it. I may think about doing videos of it. Of course, I know that, you know, RPGs are really long and it's kind of hard to do videos on them, and I feel like it's not really doing justice. Or that maybe that people may not really like it, but I think there's a lot of people out there that love Xenogears and a lot of these old school RPGs. And some of these RPGs have already been kind of remastered and kind of redone already to a version makes it more user-friendly, especially for younger people to get into it. Because a lot of younger people may not even want to get into this game, you know, specifically because of some of the old school features about it. You know, you can't save anywhere. There's no autosaves. It can be rather tough. It can be a rather tough game, really. A lot of times you've had to level up. You have to level up quite a bit before fighting certain bosses, because otherwise you're just going to have a hard time playing it. Of course, as I was saying, you know, it starts out as trying to capture the princess. You know, later on, it's fully explained exactly why, because it was like they're like a theater troupe, and they'll have their flying airship, you know, where they do a stage and they're doing a play and stuff. And there's a whole thing where you get kind of caught up in the play, and you have to kind of play the play, do a sword fight, hit button cues to do things. It's kind of cool. You know, the music, the story, it's a rather interesting game, and I think it deserves, I would have to do a hike. So when I do a video like I've done in the past to kind of talk about some of these, and they will probably be upcoming things, and I'm probably going to do a video for. Since I have access to this on Game Pass on the Xbox, I can now access Game Pass on my computer. I have a very decent gaming computer. I mean, it's not like super powerful, but it's able to play most of the games. I've had issues trying to get like some games working, but I like to kind of just play it, you know, show some footage of it. But I suppose I should probably think about that a little bit if I really want to get into it, you know, because sometimes I like to just, because recently I did a video of Xenogears and I was just kind of summing up the beginning of it, because it's been a while since I had played it, you know. Of course, I'm trying to talk about Fantasy 9. But, so I guess that's about pretty much what I'm going to kind of talk about with with Final Fantasy 9. It's definitely a great game. Seems to be multiple different ways to play it. It's not like a game that's really tough to find. But I do suggest, you know, that you guys, if you still have a PS3, I still have a PS3. Because there was some games I really liked to play on it that, you know, and of course, PlayStation 4 was not backwards compatible. You know, Sony and their backwards compatible thing, it's really ticking me off. Even the not having external storage, and now there's an update for PlayStation 5 that supposedly fixed that, but yeah, and I should a whole video talk about PlayStation 5 at some point. I haven't really gotten one. I've said, why don't I just wait? Because there's not really any super exclusive games on it yet. You know, some of the advertising of it, like, you know, it sounds like back in the day, you know, the blast processing, and it's super fast, and this. Notice I got like a new shirt. I went to like Martin's out here, which is kind of a discount store. I guess some Old Navy shirts they had there, because this shirt references Out of Control there. So yeah, a funny shirt to be wearing, especially on a gaming channel. I just thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah, so in this video I have made sure that my room was straightened up so it doesn't look like such a mess. I have a pretty interesting setup here. As you can see, you know, the ceilings, like, can't really use all the space. Can't really use up all the space here. I don't have as much room as I had. I mean, I had a whole other room, you know, to do my whole videos in. Now I have just kind of my bedroom that's kind of using and doing everything. Okay, well, I definitely suggest you guys go out and play Final Fantasy 9 if you haven't played it. It's definitely a great game. It's definitely worth somebody talking about. I know that a lot of people probably really prefer or really like Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X like revolutionized everything, because just about every Final Fantasy game was 3D after that. I mean, I guess Final Fantasy IX is 3D, but it's not like, you know, Final Fantasy X was an amazing game on the PlayStation 2. It's even worth still going and playing the original version. And it's still worth playing the original version of Final Fantasy IX. I mean, you, of course, can play it on the PS3, but at least, you know, this game, you know, you can also play it on the PlayStation 5, I would assume, because most things on PlayStation 4 you can play on the 5. So that game is kind of protected, but there's a lot of PlayStation games. So if you've never played the PlayStation and you're interested in the PlayStation, I definitely suggest going out, getting one, and trying to find it, because retro game prices are going through the roof. As the older a console gets, the more people are kind of going after it. I've seen, you know, like, things are complete, unopened games have never been opened are worth like $800 of certain copies of certain games. So it's still good to go out and get some of these retro games before you may not find them physically. Because we do live in an age where all games are pretty much kind of going the way of digital, and, you know, unfortunately the store gets shut down or something happens to your PlayStation 3. Like, what if there's an internal battery? So I've heard of internal battery problems with PlayStation 4. Hey, folks, I guess this is the kind of the end for this. I don't really want to ramble too much about nothing stuff, because I wanted to try to focus on it. Of course, you know, my videos are unscripted. I don't really think, I'm kind of like doing this all in my mind, so it's kind of just hard for me to kind of figure when to cut off a video, because I just have a lot to say on these topics. But yeah, well, anyway, yes, Final Fantasy 9. One of those really, sorry, it's kind of bright in here. The other times I've had issues with being too dark in my room. Yes, Final Fantasy 9 is definitely an RPG that's really good. Maybe it's not the best place to start with RPGs if you're trying to kind of get into the genre, but it's a pretty great game. It's a great swan song to the PlayStation. I think one of the last of the PlayStation games. I think there was some PlayStation games made in 2001, but I would assume people would have moved on. That people would have moved on by now. Yeah, Final Fantasy 9 is a great Final Fantasy game, and it's a great RPG. Some old school issues that might kind of turn somebody off, so you might want to play the PlayStation 4 version. Of course, if you max out all the characters at the beginning of the game, you won't be able to use trophies. So I guess there is kind of you kind of get a little penalized for cheating, I guess. But it's great if you want to play the game for the story and not have to worry about leveling up and everything. Kind of makes the game more fun. Because there is a lot of old school things that will turn people off. Well, anyway, that's been the E-Man, and I guess I'll be signing off here. You guys stay safe. I hope you guys are really trying to get, appointments to get vaccinated, and hopefully this summer is going to be a lot better than last summer when everything was kind of closed up. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Yep, I will see you guys later. Bye.